Everyone. Madam Clerk, could you please read the roll?
Mr. Bozen?
Here.
Mr. Amos?
Here.
Mr. Morrissey?
Here.
Mrs. Klein?
Here.
Mr. Foyce?
Mr. Foyce, you out there? Yeah, I don't see a council dais, but all right. Is that it?
Oh, and Mrs. Jewin and Mr. Greider.
Here.
Here.
All right. If you would join me in a moment of silence, that'll be great. All right, thank you. The pledge will be led by Kelly Felkley, City Clerk.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with
liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you.
Okay, motion to approve the agenda as amended, and the amendment is to remove number 13 and approve the minutes of May 11th, 2020, the regular session as proposed.
Second.
A motion has been made with a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we have an agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I just wanted to mention that that's number 13 on the consent agenda, or 1A13, I believe.
Okay. Thank you. That was Lodge Construction, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Thanks for that, Pat, because that could have been skipped. Thank you. I'm sorry, Mr. Morrissey. All right. We have proclamations. It is National EMS Week. And I can read that. City of Waterloo, Iowa proclamation. Whereas emergency medical service is a vital public service, and whereas access to quality emergency medical care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness or injury. And whereas emergency medical service teams consist of emergency medical physicians, emergency nurses, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, firefighters, educators, and administrators. Whereas the members of emergency medical teams, whether career or volunteer, engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skill. Whereas emergency medical providers, despite great risk to themselves, continue to provide critical and timely care and transport for victims of current SARS-CoV-2 pandemic. And now therefore be it resolved that I, Quentin Hart, Mayor of the City of Waterloo, do hereby proclaim the week of May 17th to 23rd, 2020 as Emergency Medical Services Week. So, Chief Treloar, are you out there?
I sure am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. Well, thanks for the proclamation, Mayor. Generally, during EMS Week, we have open house here at Station 1, and we look forward to having everybody come into our downtown station, but obviously that's not possible this go around. We had a couple other things planned, a potential parade and a few other things, but because of the pandemic, we've chosen to sideline all those till next year. We are doing a kids coloring contest that we have information out on our Facebook, our Instagram. I believe it's on the city's Facebook page as well. We're encouraging kids to send in some of their artwork for a special type of drive-by salute to them for winning the contest. But I'd like to state that our members here have done a phenomenal job during the pandemic. We have transported many COVID positive patients, and we've continued to provide excellent compassionate care. And we're fortunate to have a good couple of stakeholders, a good couple of hospitals within the city that has taken care of the people we've transported. But thanks for the proclamation.
All right, thank you, and thank you for all you guys do. I know, there's no tribute that we can possibly give you that will honor the sacrifice, commitment, and dedication that all of you have. But we just want to say thank you so much for your service, and we appreciate all you do. So thank you, Mr. Treloar. All right, the next proclamation we have is regarding Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. And it says, whereas recognizing the significance of Asian Pacific American Heritage Month as an important time to celebrate the significant contributions of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders to the history of the United States, Iowa, and Waterloo. And whereas the people of the United States join together each May to pay tribute to the contributions of generations of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders who have enriched the history of the United States. And whereas 2020 is the 30th anniversary of President George H.W. Bush signing a bill into law declaring the entire month of May to be Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. And whereas the history of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders in the United States is inextricably tied to the story of the United States, whereas the Asian American and Pacific Islander community is an inherently diverse population comprised of over 45 distinct ethnicities and over 100 language dialects. And whereas, according to the Bureau of Census, the Asian American population grew faster than any other racial or ethnic group over the last decade. And whereas there are approximately 1,560 residents of the city of Waterloo who identify themselves as Asian, and approximately 340 residents of the city of Waterloo who identify themselves as Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander, making up nearly 6% of the total population of the United States. Whereas the month of May was selected for Asian Pacific American Heritage Month because the first Japanese immigrants arrived in the United States on May 7, 1843, and the first transcontinental railroad was completed on May 10, 1869, with substantial contributions from Chinese immigrants. And whereas Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and or other Pacific Islanders have contributed significantly to the history of the United States of Iowa and Waterloo. Whereas there remains much to be done to ensure that Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders have access to resources and a voice in all levels of government of the United States and continue to advance towards equality for all. And whereas celebrating Asian Pacific American Heritage Month provides the people of Waterloo with an opportunity to recognize the achievements, contributions, and history of, and to understand the challenges faced by Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. Now, therefore, I, Quentin Hart, Mayor of the City of Waterloo, do hereby proclaim May 2020 as Asian Pacific Islander Heritage Month. Do we have any representatives to speak on this? Well, I'll just say really quickly, when we talk about diversity, we are rich with diversity in this community. We must continue to celebrate, and we must also continue to make sure that we move from just the conversation about diversity to transitioning and making sure that's inclusiveness for all of our citizens here who make up this incredible city. So please honor this month and recognize this month as well. All right, next, Kelly, do we have anyone that has signed up to speak on non-agenda related items?
We do not.
We do not. All right, well, I will lead that to my dear council members. Is there anyone that would like to make comments at this time? All right, Mrs. Jewin?
Mr.
It
Mayor?
looks like Mr. Morris, does Mr. Morrissey want to speak?
Mr. Morris?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to say a couple things about the proclamation for Asian and Pacific Islander recognition for maybe in the month. And, it truly speaks to the fact that North America is a land between two other continents, basically, that came over and became a nation of immigrants, even though our Native American brothers and sisters have been here for eons. Still, right now, when I grew up, and it was in school, we talked about the U.S., North America being the melting pot. Well, this proclamation basically says that we are a melting pot. We're a nation that has become a nation of immigrants, and we're open to other people. And the phrase, "Give me you're tired, you're poor, you're hungry, yearning to be free," is, I think, part and parcel of this proclamation. And I really appreciate the proclamation and what it says about our country, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, and incredible tribute in history as well.
Okay, motion to close the oral presentations, receive comments, and place on file.
That motion has been made with the second. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? All right, presentation's closed.
Okay, motion to approve the consent agenda as previously amended, removing number 13, and add to 1A1 the amount of $13,777,930.75. Move to receive, approve, and place on file.
Second.
All right, the motion is made with the second. Council comments? Madam Clerk?
Mr. Bozen?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Mrs. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Foyce?
Yes.
Mr. Greider?
Yes.
Mrs. Jewin?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Within that is Terry Conrad in the audience. Terry will be a new appointment to our ADA Compliance Commission. So, Terry, we thank you for your signing up. We thank you for your commitment and for serving with the City of Waterloo. So thank you, Terry Conrad. All right. Number 2, please.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Morrissey.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file proof of publication of notice of public hearing on the fiscal year 2020 wastewater treatment plant digester number 3 cover modifications project contract number 1021.
Second.
Motion was made with about 3 people doing the second, so good luck on that one, Kelly. That motion was made with second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The hearing is now open. Do we have any comments on file?
We do not have any comments on file.
Is there anyone on the telephone that would like to speak to this particular item or Zoom? Going a second time?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Morrissey.
I'd like to make a motion to close the hearing.
Second.
That motion has been made with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? The hearing is now closed.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution confirming approval of plan specifications form of contract, etc., and authorizing to proceed.
Second.
That motion has been made with a second. Council, any questions? Madam Clerk?
Mr. Amos,
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey,
Yes.
Mrs. Klein,
Yes.
Mr. Foyce,
Yes.
Mr. Greider,
Yes.
Mrs. Jewin,
Yes.
Mr. Bozen.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to receive, file, and instruct city clerk to read bids and refer to the city collection systems manager for further review.
Second.
That motion has been made with a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, Madam Clerk.
Our bid estimate was $1,015,875, and our bid alternative estimate was $1,179,225. Our first bidder was WRH Incorporated of Amana, Iowa. They provided 5% security. Their base bid was $819,000, alternate 1, $48,500, alternate 2, $43,500, alternate 3, $7,000, and alternate 4, $10,000. Our second bidder was Woodruff Construction, LLC of Waterloo, Iowa. They provided 5% security. Their base bid was $974,000, alternate 1, $88,500, alternate 2, $68,500, alternate 3, $9,100, and alternate 4, $9,500. And our final bidder was Story Construction Company of Ames, Iowa. They provided 5% security. Their base bid was $875,000, alternate 1, $79,340, alternate 2, $56,100, alternate 3, $6,800, and alternate 4, $5,100.
Kelly, what was that first one? What was the initial bid?
For WRH Incorporated,
Yeah.
their base bid was $819,000. Alternate 1 was $48,500. Alternate 2, $43,500.
That's fine. I just wanted to know that initial bid, not to cut you off.
Sure, that's fine.
All right. Thank you. Could someone take number 3, please?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Amos.
Number 3 is, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file proof of publication of notice of public hearing, and that is for fiscal year 2020 Newell Street Rise Project, contract number 991.
The motion's been made with a second. Did you say Knoll Street or just Knoll?
Newell, Mayor, Newell.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The hearing is now open. Do we have any comments on file or anyone that would like to speak for this item?
We do not have any comments on file.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Amos.
I'd like to make a motion to close the hearing.
Second.
The motion's been made with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The hearing is now closed. Hello? All right, the hearing is now closed.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion adopting a resolution confirming approval of plans, specifications, form of contract, etc., and authorizing to proceed.
Second.
The motion has been made with the second. Council questions? Madam Clerk?
Mr. Morrissey,
Yes.
Mrs. Klein,
Yes.
Mr. Foyce,
Yes.
Mr. Greider,
Yes.
Mrs. Jewin,
Yes.
Mr. Bozen,
Yes.
and Mr. Amos.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Sir.
I'd like to make a motion to receive, file, and instruct city clerk to read bids and refer to city engineer for review.
Second.
The motion has been made with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, Madam Clerk.
All right, we had 8 different bidders for this project, and the estimate was $890,695.75. Our first bidder was Veith Construction Corporation of Cedar Falls, Iowa. They provided 5% security. Their total bid amount was $737,572.95. Our second bidder was Midwest Concrete Incorporated of Peosta, Iowa. They provided 5% security. Their bid amount was $779,210.31. Our third bidder was Lodge Construction Incorporated of Clarksville, Iowa. They provided 5% security. Their bid amount was $691,843.65. Our fourth bidder was Chick-fil-A Excavating of Dubuque, Iowa. They provided 5% security. Their bid amount was $794,953.62. Our next bidder was Perk Tobin Construction Incorporated of Alburnett, Iowa. They provided 5% security. Their bid amount was $727,837.94. Our next bidder was thanks. Our next bidder was Baker Enterprises Incorporated of Waverly, Iowa. They provided 5% security. Their bid amount was $710,742.61. Our second to last bidder was Peterson Contractors Incorporated of Rhinebeck, Iowa. They provided 5% security. Their bid amount was $634,794.80. Our final bidder was K. Cunningham Construction Company Incorporated of Cedar Falls, Iowa. They provided 5% security. Their bid amount was $640,116.43.
Those were some incredible bids. Wow. All right. Thank you. Could someone take number 4, please?
Mr. Mayor,
Sir.
I'd like to make a motion to receive and file proof of publication of notice of public hearing, and that is for, sorry, we're on number 4, right? I lost track. My computer broke. That is for the sale and conveyance of city-owned property located south of 1318 Martin Road in the amount of $1 to Three Stooges LLC, including a development agreement.
Second. The motion has been made with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The hearing is now open. Is there anyone that would like to speak to this item on the agenda or comments on file? For the second time?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to close the hearing.
Second.
That motion was made with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The hearing is now closed.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion for a resolution authorizing the sale and conveyance of city-owned property located south of 1318 Martin Road to Three Stooges LLC in the amount of $1 and authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute said documents.
Second.
That motion has been made with the second. Council questions? Madam Clerk?
Mrs. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Foyce?
Yes.
Mr. Greider?
Yes.
Mrs. Jewin?
Yes.
Mr. Bozen?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
All right,
Mr.
thank
Mayor,
you.
I'd like to make a motion for a resolution approving a development agreement with Three Stooges LLC for the construction of 3 commercial buildings and authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute said documents.
Second.
That motion has been made with the second. Any questions again? Madam Clerk?
Mr. Foyce?
Yes.
Mr. Greider?
Yes.
Mrs. Jewin?
Yes.
Mr. Bozen?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
And Mrs. Klein?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Madam Clerk, are we able to open up the hearing for all of these at one time, or do we need to do them individually?
I think we're okay to open them all at the same time.
All right, someone want to take it for all 4 of them?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Morrissey?
is it okay to lump the 5, 6, 7 sort of together, separate from 8, being as that 5, 6, 7 all deal with for general corporate purpose?
Please do.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file proof of publication of notice of public hearing on the following, general obligation bonds, GCP2, general obligation bonds, GCP3, general obligation bonds, GCP4, for the issuance of not to exceed $700,000 in general obligation bonds for general corporate purposes on each of those.
Second.
A motion has been made, with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, it is now time for the hearing. Madam Clerk, are there any comments on file?
We do not have any comments on file.
Is there anyone on the audience that would like to speak to these particular items, 5, 6, and 7 right now? All right.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Morrissey.
there were nobody wished to talk.
She said no, and then no comments.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay,
No, you're
Mr. Mayor, I'd
fine.
like to make a motion to close the hearing.
Second.
A motion has been made with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt resolutions instituting proceedings to take additional action for the issuance of not to exceed $700,000 general obligation bonds on GCP2, GCP3, and GCP4 for general corporate purposes.
Second.
A motion has been made with the second. Council discussion? Madam Clerk?
Mr. Greider?
Yes.
Mrs. Jewin?
Yes.
Mr. Bozen?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Mrs. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Foyce?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Someone take number 8, please.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr.
Sir. Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to receive and file proof of publication of notice of public hearing, and that is for general obligation bonds, ECP-UR5, and the issuance is not to exceed $6,600,000 general obligation bonds for essential corporate urban renewal purposes.
Second.
That motion has been made with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The hearing is now open. Madam Clerk, do we have any comments on file or anyone over the lines that would like to comment?
We did not have any comments on file.
Anyone to comment? All right.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to close the hearing.
Second.
The motion has been made with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The hearing is now closed.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion adopting a resolution instituting proceedings to take additional action for the issuance of not to exceed $6,600,000 in general obligation bonds.
Second.
The motion has been made with the second. Council discussion? Madam Clerk?
Mrs. Jewin?
Yes.
Mr. Bozen?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Mrs. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Foyce?
Yes.
Mr. Greider?
Yes. All right, thank you. Could someone take 9 and 10, please?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor.
Who was that?
We had Mrs. Klein with the motion.
Mrs. Klein?
Okay, number 9 is a resolution directing the advertisement for sale of $8,235,000 taxable general obligation bonds, Series 2020B, setting sale date as June 2nd, 2020, and approving electronic bidding procedures and the distribution of the preliminary official statement for the sale. Number 10 is a resolution directing the advertisement for sale of $7,025,000 in general obligation bonds, Series 2020A, setting sale date as June 2nd, 2020, and approving electronic bidding procedures and distribution of preliminary official statement for the sale.
Second.
A motion has been made with the second. Council discussion.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Bozen.
could Michelle just give us a brief overview?
Ms. Michelle. Yeah, there we go.
Thought I was unmuted, but I wasn't. Michelle Wiedner, Chief Financial Officer. Yes, we are planning to sell possibly $8,235,000 in taxable GO bonds on June 2nd, and $2,440,000 of that is a potential refunding of bonds that were originally issued in 2012. So it will depend on where interest rates are in the market that day, whether we're able to sell or not. We won't do that if there isn't a saving. My rule of thumb is usually that we need to have at least a 2% savings in actual interest paid in order to do that. Then we are also going to be selling tax-exempt bonds, and that will be in the amount of $7,025,000. Same date, and we'll get those sold for the year.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Madam Clerk?
Mr. Bozen,
Yes.
Mr. Amos,
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey,
Yes.
Mrs. Klein,
Yes.
Mr. Foyce,
Yes.
Mr. Greider,
Yes.
Mrs. Chewin.
Yes.
All right. Take 11 through 13, please. Yeah.
Can I do 14? Because that I'll do 11 through 14. Would that be okay?
Perfect.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion for a resolution to approve Experience Waterloo board recommendation for funding in the events capital hotel motel tax grant funds for fiscal year 21. Number 12 is a resolution approving renewal of contract with Wellmark Blue Cross Blue Shield of Iowa for administration of the employee health care and prescription plan from July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021, including administrative fees and stop loss insurance in the amount of $1,585,350 and authorizing the Human Resources Director to execute said document. 13 is a resolution approving renewal of contract with Delta Dental of Iowa in the amount of $4.76 per contract for administration of the employee dental care benefit plan from July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021, and authorizing the Human Resources Director to execute said document. And 14 is a resolution approving renewal of contract with National Insurance Services for administration of the employee life and long-term disability benefit plan from July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021, and authorizing the Human Resources Director to execute said document.
Second.
The motion has been made with the second. Council discussion.
Mr. Mayor, I think we have, I think Tavis is on. Can he just kind of go through a little bit of the board recommendations, and then if these events aren't held, what would happen with that grant funding?
Mr. Hall, and I see 1 beer, 2 beer, 3 beers. So first time we had 3 beers on the line, so that's quite an honor.
There we go, and they're all pre-COVID beards as well, if I'm not mistaken. So we're originals. So we've got actually 3 different grant categories. One is a partner grant for $82,000. That goes to the Playhouse, Center for the Arts, Route Museum, the Gable Museum, Main Street Waterloo, and the Arboretum. That goes towards their marketing efforts throughout the year. We also have a capital grant, which is for the Waterloo Regional Airport. Their website is rather outdated, and their branding elements are in need of a refresh in a bad way. And so those funds would go to assist executing that in a way that the public should be able to get behind. And then the event grants, to Councilman Foyce's point, total $89,000, $89,767 to be exact. If these events do not happen, these are reimbursement funds. It is a part of their grant application that if there are any material changes to their event, so if an event, for instance, goes virtual, which we are seeing a few of those, if those events go virtual, we will at that point not fund those events per the rules of the application. So we've tightened up as much as we can. All of these events are incredibly important, especially in this time. If we're able to hold events and generate dollars back to the local economy, we're looking at total economic impact of $7,775,000 generated from these event grants. So they're incredibly important if these events are able to happen. If in the event that they are not able to happen, the city will not be expected to make those payments because those would have been material changes, and per the rules of the application, they would not be eligible for funding.
All right, I think, Michelle, you have a question?
No. No.
All right, anyone else with questions? Madam Clerk?
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Mrs. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Foyce?
Yes.
Mr. Greider?
Yes.
Mrs. Jewin?
Yes.
And Mr. Bozen?
Yes.
All right, thank you. 15, 16, and 17.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Bolton.
I'd like to adopt a resolution approving a staffing for adequate fire and emergency response SAFER grant application to hire 4 additional firefighters and authorize the fire chief to sign said document. Number 16 is a resolution approving the school resource officer agreement with the Waterloo Community School District to provide 6 school resource officers in the schools in fiscal year 2021 in the amount of $370,000 to include funding for officer training and authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute said document. Number 17 is a resolution approving a 5-year maintenance agreement with Access Systems, Inc., Cedar Falls, Iowa, in conjunction with printer and copier needs for the police department, state of Iowa bid pricing, and authorizing the mayor to execute said document.
Second.
All right, that motion has been made with some seconds. Council discussion.
Mr. Mayor,
This-
I have a question on number 15, and I don't like to always be the downer on this, but my question, because we don't know what our finances are going to be in the short and the long-term future. I understand that the grant pays 100% for 3 years for 4 firefighters, and at the end of that time period, if we find that we don't need the additional or can't afford it, then we can reduce that number. But in the meantime, right now, I think, Mr. Treloar, we have, 106 firefighters, I believe?
Correct, 106 sworn is our authorized number, yes.
Okay, and with this grant, we would move up to 110. What if a year and a half, 2 years from now, we find that our revenue would not support the original 106? That even without this grant, without those additional 4, we don't have the revenue to support the 106. And that to me would be a travesty. It would certainly mean that we're having layoffs in other departments, not just the fire department. So please, this is not aimed at the fire department, because I do very much support this grant. But the question has come up is if we would normally, without this grant, seek to reduce the number of firefighters, would we be able to do that, or would the grant tie us into 110 regardless?
Well, the grant requires you to set a operational level for personnel. So in other words, we're at 106 right now sworn. There's 5 of us that don't count towards the operational level. So we do have some room where we could move around a few positions, but generally speaking, if we weren't able to keep at the level we'd agreed upon when we signed on to the grant, then we could potentially be in default to the grant.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
I have worries about this too. I worried about it at the budget time, and wow, you know, this COVID-19 has just completely wrecked city budgets all across the nation, and we're going to find ourselves in a position of struggling to maintain just what we have. That's a huge challenge that faces us, and right now it's just not getting any better. I worry, just like Mrs. Jewin, I worry that we will put these people on, and then because of the contract, we'll have to keep them and potentially, God help us, I hope it doesn't happen, but potentially lay off people that have been here much longer. I just don't understand the ramifications of all of that, and I don't know why we would even consider setting ourselves up for such a situation. We didn't think we could afford it when we were just determining the budget based on what we consider normal aspects. Now we've swung way outside of normal with COVID-19, and we're going to be struggling to find ways to pay the bills.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Boza.
thank you. I appreciate the time. The important thing about this grant and the changes that they made since it originally came out, and we discussed it at the council meeting, originally we were going to pay 25% of wages for X amount of firefighters for the 3 years. And because of the COVID-19 and because of what's going on nationwide, that's been taken out of the equation. So the federal government is offering 100% for these firefighters for 3 years at no cost to the city, basically no cost. They cover salary, benefits, pension, everything. So I think we would be foolish not to apply for it. If we apply for it, and at the time that if we are awarded the grant and we don't, and at that time we are in dire straits, there's no penalty for refusing the grant or for backing out of it. When you can get 4 firefighters to bring our staffing levels up to where they should be for 0 cost to the city, I think it's just it's crazy not to look into it. It would benefit the city. It would keep our staffing levels where we need to be, and I'm confident. I truly am that the federal government is going to backfill money to cities. I mean, they're dragging their feet on it right now, but I truly believe that that's going to happen. They just funded the school systems, $2.65 million for the city of Waterloo. I think that we've got some tight budget issues that we need to deal with the casino, with hotel, motel, with road shoes. But I do think that there are brighter days ahead. I think we need to be confident in the city. We need to be confident in our city council and managing our budget and our CFO. And I strongly encourage the majority of the council to support this grant application.
Mr. Mayor, can I make a comment to that?
Yes, sir.
So we'd planned to submit the grant even with, or at least come to council, ask for permission when the cost share was involved. When the pandemic hit, we had a discussion over here, the appropriateness to try to put in a grant that could potentially add to the cost of our budget moving forward. We made the decision not to put forward the grant until this bulletin came out. So I think it is relevant to let you know that 90% of the grant work has been done. We don't have any expense involved with it. We're not paying a grant writer to submit it. We think we have a decent chance at getting it. We're not confident that 100% will get the grant, but we're asking for permission to submit it. We will definitely come back to council if we were to happen to be awarded it. And then I think at that time we could judge where we're at financially to see if it's something that we want to even take a look at. I've got written notification from FEMA that there's no penalty involved if we were to be awarded the grant and we were to turn it down for whatever reason. As long as we turn it down in a fairly quick fashion, then there is no penalty moving forward. So I would like the shot to at least put in the grant and then have you decide at a later date if it's something that we could afford as a city.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Amos.
Yeah, Mayor. I can remember going through several budgets, and during those budget times, there was always talk of needing more firefighters and then negotiating to not include a few firefighters. And I see this as an opportunity, and what I'm hearing, there's not going to be any cost to the city. For me, I'm going to support this because I just feel like it's the proper direction for the city to go.
All right,
Mr. Mayor.
thank you. Mr. Morrissey.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Morrissey.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to add that this is an application being submitted to ask for the SAFER grant. It is not a commitment, as people have said, but the other part of this is a federal grant, I do believe, and the federal government is fully aware of the pandemic and fully aware of the costs and the problems associated in municipalities and local governments. That's why they went ahead and they did this. They allowed the 100%. It is to tell municipalities that we're with you. We want you to still apply for these grants, and this is what we're saying is going to make it more palatable for you to apply and hopefully get, because we believe in public safety. I see this as the federal government telling us and encouraging us to go ahead with plans and that they are going to cover those costs for public safety purposes.
All right, thank you. Chief, just really quickly, there's a small cost though, right? Is it equipment or something like that? There's very small costs associated, right?
Well, there are a few things that the grant does not cover. It would not cover PPE for the firefighters that were to be brought on. It appears they don't pay for the pre-employment physical. So to answer your question, yes, there are some costs involved with it. And I think we could, if we were to be awarded the grant, I think we could work those costs out exactly, work with CFO Wiedner to come up with an exact amount. But for the most part, the cost share is gone. That's clear in the bulletin that came out on May 14th. To Pat Morrissey, Mr. Morrissey's point, it's kind of our take that the federal government had not seen the applications coming in that they thought that they would receive. The bulletin came out on the 14th, which is very rare because the grant was due on the 15th. So we do think that governments were having these tough discussions and deciding not to put in. So then we believe that the feds say, we better get rid of the cost share. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to distribute this $350 million pot of money we have.
All right, and then quick question. So we get through a year and we decide that we can't do it. Do they expect us to pay that year back, or do we just stop the program at that point?
The guidance on that isn't exact. It does lead me to believe that there's some negotiations that can be entered into with the government. So I can't answer that 100%.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?
One last question, Mr. Mayor. I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
I do believe that some of the expenses for the PPE and for the pre-employment physicals, I do believe we're going to have a savings in overtime by hiring 4 additional firefighters at no cost. You look like you disagree, Michelle. You're shaking your head.
I'll be pleasantly surprised.
Well, I hope you are. Thank you.
Hey, that's quote of the week. All right, anything else?
Mr. Mayor, could we have a brief overview on number 16 from Major Liable?
Major, you out there?
The
The SR.
SRO.
Major Liable Waterloo Police. That's a recurring grant. We have cost sharing agreement with Waterloo Schools. It covers 50 to maybe 60% of the SRO costs to provide a school resource officer in the high schools and the middle schools.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Madam Clerk.
Mr. Morrissey?
15. Okay.
Pardon?
Pardon? Excuse me, I didn't hear.
I'm sorry, I was just repeating which numbers we're on because I forgot myself. We're on 15, 16, and 17, right?
Yep.
And yes,
All right. Mr. Morrissey?
yes,
Mrs. Klein?
No on 15 and yes on 16 and 17.
Mr. Foyce?
Yes.
Mr. Greider?
Yes.
Mrs. Jewin?
Yes.
Mr. Bozen?
Yes.
And Mr. Amos?
Yes.
All right, thank you. 18, 19, 20, and 21, those are short.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Morrissey.
Yes, I might like to make a motion to adopt the following resolutions. First is a resolution authorizing an exception to the City of Waterloo Purchasing Procedures Policy to approve the purchase of a demonstration 2019 Kenworth 300 cab over one-man Patcher unit from Star Equipment of Waterloo, Iowa in the amount of $201,369. Next is a resolution extending timeline for holding bids in conjunction with the fiscal year 2020 asphalt overlay program contract number 992 from 30 days from the date of bid opening to 81 days from the date of bid opening. Next is a resolution approving construction plans for drainage, swale, storm sewer, serving Greenbelt Center Plat number 5 and number 8, and as submitted by BJ Engineering of Cedar Falls, Iowa. And lastly is a resolution amending resolution number 2020-303 adopted on May 4, 2020 by amending paragraph 2 and the final paragraph of the resolution.
Second. A motion has been made with the second. Questions, council?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Bozen.
just a couple questions. On number 18, I wanted to ask Mr. Bennett if this is last year's CIP money, and if the unit that have we purchased this unit already? Because I know it's sitting down at public, or is it just there for a demo?
Mr. Bennett, where are you getting the money from?
Yes, it is through 2019 bond money, and yes, we've been demoing the unit, and it is down at Public Works currently.
Excellent, thank you.
Anyone else? Madam Clerk.
Mrs. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Foyce?
Yes.
Mr. Greider?
Yes.
Mrs. Jewin?
Yes.
Mr. Bozen?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
And Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Thank you, council.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion's been made with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Stay safe.
Thank you.